All right, let's go ahead and welcome our guest for this hour to talk about this case, National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, great to see you. Okay, we've been watching this case out in Boston, waiting now in real time to see if defense, what they're going to do, who they're going to call to the stand. Is the defendant going to testify? Let me ask you about alcohol in this case. How significant of a role is alcohol going to play in this case?
Great question. Excellent question. It's going to be a massive part of this case, right? Because she blew a .13 hours after the incident, which means that she was probably conceivably at a .2. Just so people understand, at a .08, you're legally considered drunk. You should not be behind a wheel and you're intoxicated, and your body metabolizes .15 alcoholic drinks per hour, right? So she must have been very super drunk. So I think it's going to be a massive piece of this case. I think it is the case. It's how drunk she was, because at the end of the day, the jury are going to know that she was in the room, she was in the bed, she was very drunk, and she doesn't even remember whether or not she consented to having him do what he did. That is debatable, but I think alcohol, if it wasn't for the alcohol, this case would be a different trial.
Also, Michael, talk about the kind of perception that he was fleeing, and defense counsel is going to talk about that. He sat down with investigators. They told him that he was free to leave, but then prosecutors are going to play it a whole different way.
They are going to play it a whole different way, but I don't think the jury can reasonably infer that this was consciousness of guilt for him to get on that flight. And here's why. He doesn't live in the United States. If he lived in the United States and he was on an international flight, like we've seen other cases, the woman in Florida, where she was on a one-way ticket to Vietnam, clearly that's a consciousness of guilt. That's a different situation. He's going home. He doesn't live in the United States. Yes, he made his trip. He was slated to leave earlier, but he was leaving sooner. His defense attorney is going to say that he was investigated by police. He clearly was not going to enjoy his trip. He had no reason to stay. He had to go home and mend fences with his family. So I don't think the jury can reasonably infer that this was consciousness of guilt. I could be wrong.
Yeah, we'll have to see. All right, Michael, thank you so much. All right, talking about the little girl and how her ear was hurting. They're having a sidebar there inside the courtroom. So why don't we go ahead and bring in National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar, who is still with us. Michael, all right, let's talk about this case. The defendant saying self-defense in this one. What's your overall take on this case?
He has as much of a shot at a self-defense strategy as standing underneath Niagara Falls and throwing the water back over the cliff. That's really what his attorney pretty much knows. He was 3 times her size. If he reasonably believed that she was going to kidnap their kid, okay, he didn't have to resort to shooting her. There were many other things he could have done, criminal acts he could have done, pushing her, restraining her, grabbing. What was she going to do? Stop him? I want to see. The only shots he has is showing that she held a gun to him and she was about to shoot him and he shot her back, and I don't think that's going to be his defense. That's my take on the case.
Yeah, I mean, she was lying on the couch, I guess, when he shot her. Michael, when you talk with a defendant, when you represent someone and you take a look at this set of facts, what do? You think, okay, well, self-defense, this is all we got here for our strategy.
Yeah. I have PTSD from my days of defending criminals and innocent people, because there are so many things that come out of your client's mouth that you can't contend with. There have been so many irrational defenses. When I was a public defender, there were many defendants that I had to represent, and they insisted, for example, to take the stand and tell their story. And I had plea deals lined up for many defendants where the deal was a sweetheart deal, no jail time, but they insisted on going to trial. And I had a defendant say, I shouldn't be charged with this armed robbery because I'm not a professional felon. And even though there's a video of me doing it, I think we've got a shot at defending ourselves. I had to put him on the stand because I was a public defender. I couldn't, I didn't have autonomy. So we don't know what's behind the scenes with this particular case, but what I can tell the public is that when you're an attorney, you don't really have full control over the defense. You can urge and can consult your client, but at the end of the day, it's their defense. I don't know whether or not a plea deal was offered here, but at the end of the day, I don't think any attorney would look at this and say, this is a case I'm going to hang my hat on. They're probably going to lose.
Yeah, I would think so. Michael, thank you so much. We're going to squeeze in a break. Let's go ahead and bring in National Trial Attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, just some Final thoughts on this case as we get to the top of the hour? I mean, it's a tough one for the defense.
Oh yeah, this is an impossible one for the defense. I don't even know if they have a Hail Mary in their tool bag. I'm just rolling my eyes and thinking about the defense attorney job is a very difficult job in our country, and a lot of times you are forced to do things, and you have to do things to protect the system that make no rational sense. At the end of the day, I think that this person is going to get convicted. He's innocent until proven guilty, but crazier things have happened in our system, Kelly, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah. In last segment, you were talking about how you might have a client and there might be video, and you're like, okay, well, here's a plea deal, and there's a video, but yet they still don't want to take the deal.
Plea deal, no jail time. There's video of you doing the robbery. No, but I'm not a professional thief, so I should not have even been charged with that. Let me teach you about the law, Mr. Jaafar. That's not the way the law works. This is the life of a criminal defense attorney. It just happens. It happens all more time than people believe. We see the glamorous cases on TV, the big ones, the important ones. But 98% of criminal defense cases end in a plea for a reason, because the state comes ready and prepared when they bring these charges. They're not always right, but they're right a lot of times, and they come prepared and they come to win.
Let's go back in. That sidebar is over. Thanks, Michael.